At the Met Gala in New York last night. This year's theme was heavenly bodies, fashion and the Catholic imagination, and the celebrities didn't disappoint. A warning, the following pictures contain flashing images. Well, Blake Lively stole the show with a spectacular handmade Versace gown that took 600 hours to make. Anna Wintour's annual fashion ball was themed around the Met's new exhibition, Heavenly Bodies. The installation honours centuries of clothing and artefacts from the Vatican and from the history of Catholic culture. Well, some have criticised the choice of the theme, and here to discuss that, I'm joined by Caroline Farrow, writer at the Catholic Universe, and fashion journalist Natasha Perlman. Caroline, Natasha, really good to see you both. Thanks for joining us today. Caroline, if I could firstly start with you, your reaction to this year's theme at the Met Gala.
I was a little bit taken aback, but you have to realise, this is because the Vatican themselves lent some really rare papal garments to the museum, and they sanctioned the theme. So although a little bit of me was uncomfortable with it, just because I don't like to see things that are sort of sacred being treated in a profane way or any blasphemy. Actually, none of that occurred, and in some ways I think it's better if the Catholic Church, it shows that we're relevant, people are interested. And, I know there's been some criticism that, if this was another religion, say, for example, Judaism or Islam, it wouldn't have had the same treatment. But at the same time, certainly in the West, a religion like Islam doesn't have the same sort of rich heritage, and they're a little bit more limited in terms of creativity of female clothing. So as long as it wasn't profane, sacrilegious, blasphemous, then I guess overall I'm okay with it.
Natasha, what do you think this year's theme was supposed to achieve?
I would say I was actually not disappointed entirely with it, but I was hoping, I suppose, that some of the participants, some of the people joining would have perhaps taken this as an opportunity to challenge and think more deeply about what religion has meant to women in particular. I would say that I thought Lena Waithe was fantastic on the red carpet. She chose a kind of papal style robe decorated in the colours of the Rainbow Pride flag to signify LGBTQ, which is actually obviously very challenging for the Catholic Church, because traditionally that has not been two things that have sat well together. And actually, while I think it was really incredibly respectful of Catholicism, I personally was probably expecting slightly more challenge on the history of the Catholic Church, simply because the number of designers who are involved and shape the way that we dress right now are obviously particularly in the LGBTQ movements, or definitely support them.
Caroline, would you have been offended if the boundaries were pushed somewhat and the Met Gala was highlighting issues like LGBT rights?
I think it would have detracted from the actual theme of the exhibition. So the theme of the exhibition, as you said, was heavenly bodies, fashion and the Catholic Church. So to suddenly take that as an opportunity to attack the Catholic Church because you don't agree with her doctrine on whatever various hot button issues, I think would have actually missed the point. I think what the Gala was trying to do and what the participants were trying to do was, emphasize this rich heritage that we've got, and I think someone was wearing a gown which was sort of hand painted with images from the Sistine Chapel, for example. There is so much beautiful and sacred art in the Catholic Church that it's good to see that reflected. And so I think to kind of try and in fact, the LGBT dress didn't actually get much traction, because it wasn't really, novel. And I think to suddenly start seeing this as an opportunity to challenge a faith instead of celebrate it would have perhaps been a little bit of a cheap shot. So I'm quite glad that people didn't do that, because that, I think, it kind of would have been quite inappropriate and disrespectful. We wouldn't do that, say, to Islam or to Judaism. So, why should Catholicism necessarily be a target?
Natasha?
I do see what you're saying, and I support that side of things, because I think what's so fascinating, what's so interesting about the history of Catholicism is how impactful it has been on the fashion industry, because obviously it's almost the earliest examples of extravagance and more is more, and probably on the other side of it, when you're talking about the way that nuns dress, that's the foundations of minimalism. So from a historical point of view, I think it's absolutely vital that that is celebrated. I just think that obviously what's very interesting is that the kind of extravagance that's been explored by designers like Galliano when he was at Dior, and Dolce & Gabbana, who are very deeply influenced or at least affected by religion, they've also probably had their own challenges with it. And I think this was probably, while the exhibition is very much the celebration, I did wonder whether this would perhaps be an opportunity for people to explore it on a bigger scale. And I absolutely support the fact that it should remain largely very respectful of it. But I think what I was, I suppose, slightly surprised about, that given the times that we're in, Me Too, there's so much being questioned, that I did wonder whether there would be a certain exploration of some of the designers' relationships with Catholicism.
Caroline, just looking at some of the outfits, Rihanna's outfit, for example, I guess, not that the Catholic Church needs being put on the map, but everybody's talking about it, and I guess that is why the Vatican agreed to take part in it. It involved itself the accompanying exhibition. People are talking about it, so it works in the Church's favour.
Yeah, absolutely, and it gives a chance for everybody, whether they're Catholic or not, to engage with Catholicism, and it keeps it relevant and interesting. And one of the things I would like the Catholic Church themselves, certainly in the UK, to kind of take from this in a way, is that in the 70s and 80s we had a real kind of paring back of some of this fancy liturgical vestments, and things became much plainer and simpler. And actually, I think, traditional, a bit of delicate fine lace, some intricate embroidery, that's all beautiful, and that reflects our cultural roots and our heritage. So I'd quite like to see a movement back towards that in the UK. And interesting that Natasha as well mentioned Dolce & Gabbana, because they are very Catholic, and they've come under a lot of criticism, controversy, because they've had some recent shows, and they've really highlighted the Catholic personification of women and motherhood, and it's been absolutely glorious, and it's been wonderful to see. But they've come for criticism because they have, even though they are both openly very gay, or sorry, they're both openly gay, that they are against surrogacy and same-sex adoption, and they've come in for huge amounts of criticism. So I would kind of challenge the idea that because a lot of fashion designers are LGBT, they necessarily disagree with the Catholic Church on absolutely every area of doctrine. I think everybody has their own individual challenges.
OK, Natasha, a final thought from you?
Well, I'm actually really pleased. I think what was really interesting was Andrew Bolton actually said that when he first started the exhibition, he did want to expand it to all religion, and he found that actually it was almost opened up too many doors. And I think that does suggest to you that there is probably a fear around talking about religion. While I think it's that we've had this exhibition, I cannot wait to see it. I'll do anything I can to get there. I would love to see a bigger discussion around fashion and religion, because I think it's been so influential, and I think difficult questions do need to be asked, and we should be able to discuss all religions in a context that sometimes can be a bit challenging. OK,
Caroline, Natasha, interesting discussion. Thank you very much for your time. Stay with us.